back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast, where we decode the intersection of business, mindset, and modern leadership. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today we are diving into the heart of something many companies overlook: customer experience, not as a department, but as a business strategy. And joining me, listeners, is Bryant Richardson, founder of Real Blue Sky and the visionary behind the Craft Agilities Framework. Now, with 3 decades of experience, from Fortune 1000 brands to his own consulting practice, Bryant has helped organizations reimagine how culture, strategy, and customer connection work together. So, whether you are a founder or a CX leader or just someone who is passionate about making business more human in this age of digital technology and AI and whatnot, this episode is for you. So, let's quickly get into it. So, Bryant, welcome to the show, and it is such an honor to have you with us today.
Sana, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. I appreciate being invited.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, so, Bryant, let's talk about your approach. So, your approach treats customer experience or CX as a business wide strategy, not just another function or a department. So, what does it take for leaders to make that mindset shift? And why do you think it is so urgent in today's era?
Well, that's a great question, Sana. So many organizations, and look, we all have to be focused on the bottom line at the end of the day, but so many organizations are expressing as part of their culture that the customer is a priority, and yet we don't see the follow through in practice. So take the contact center, for example. I've done a lot of work with contact centers where we're handling sales calls, customer service, technical support, that type of thing. And one of the key metrics that's often used is average handle time. It's an efficiency metric, it's a financial metric, and it is important. But what we see, for example, is that the culture may say, hey, the customer is important. We're customer centered organization, or they'll say customer centric. But then they'll focus on financial metrics with the individuals who are actually servicing the customer. And it's the wrong perspective. It gets the individual customer service representative focused on their time, their efficiency with a customer instead of truly being focused on the customer's experience. And that's just one example. We see this time and time again, even in brick and mortar environments, a retail environment. And so we say that it's critical for the organization to understand its purpose. And while certainly organizations, businesses are created to produce an income, they're created to produce money. More importantly, they're created to service customers. No business exists without customers. And only having the customer facing portion of the business, whether that's sales or operations, having only that functional area of the business focused on the customer misses the point. Because if finance, if other aspects of the business, other functional areas are not also focused on the customer experience and customer centered, then ultimately that business is going to fall short.
Mm, yeah, I agree. I strongly agree with you. And, uh, you know, since I mentioned that in this era, where it's assumed that let's just put some kind of AI chatbot or mechanism there to replace customer experience people or something like that. Um, do you think AI can completely replace CX, or do companies still need human connection in there? Because it's just the customer will come back to you for a complaint or some kind of escalation, and AI chatbot can efficiently be designed to address those kind of escalations or complaints.
That's a terrific question, especially given the growth of the variety of AI tools in business today. The reality is, I see business leaders frequently asking the wrong question. Often they're asking, how do we use AI? And
Mhm.
really, the better question is, how do we best solve the challenges that our customer has when they experience our brand? So we're focused on finding the best solution to customer challenges. If we're creating friction, for example, we're making it difficult for the customer to do business with us. We want to design a process, redesign that journey or micro journey so that it is a representation of the brand and the experience we want to create for the customer. And then if AI is the right solution, then we want to look at how we bring AI into the picture. Now, I don't see us in the near term, uh, in the next several years being in a place where AI is fully replacing humans for much of anything. What I do see happening successfully is organizations using AI to augment the experience. So what do I mean by that? Well, you mentioned an AI bot, and it can be very helpful to have some sort of bot to answer simple questions, especially when it can provide answers 7 by 24, when customer service may not be open 7 by 24, depending on the organization. But we see lots of problems with other forms of digital self-service that are not fully integrated today. And so
Mhm.
AI doesn't necessarily make that any better. The vast majority of organizations are not deploying any of their technology solutions for self-service with a really robust integration with their other systems, whether it's order management, their CRM, other
Mhm.
types of platforms, ticket management. And so where we do see great success is, for example, using AI to augment the agent experience. So if there's a representative answering a phone call, having an AI assistant that is listening to the call and prompting that representative with the tools or with the correct answer to the question so that the agent isn't having to focus on the knowledge base and trying to find the right answer. The agent can
Mhm.
be focused on mirroring the customer and empathizing with the customer while the system is looking up the correct information for them.
Hmm, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, now talking about your framework, the Craft Agilities Framework. So, Brian, can you walk us through what it is and how it empowers teams to consistently deliver value?
Mm, thank you for that question. So, craft is something that I've developed after being in professionally in the customer experience management space for over 35 years. And there are really 5 elements to craft, and it really is CRAFT. So, the C is for culture, and cultural agility really has to do with understanding our organizational purpose. That is, why does the organization exist? What customers do we serve, and how do we serve them? And while purpose will have some specifics, such as a type of support. So, for us, for example, Real Blue Sky, our customer are business leaders who are focused on growing their organizations. And we can do that through a variety of ways, but by having a purpose that is narrow enough that we know who we're for and who we're not for, but broad
Mhm.
enough so that we can bring along additional services or products into the mix to help our customers. We've got a purpose then that we can build alignment around. What's critical though is in that purpose, how we're servicing our customers, that needs to be something that is supported throughout the entire organization. So it doesn't matter if it's IT or if it's the finance function, if it's an operational function. All of these should be moving in the same path and in alignment. And how we manage the business should be aligned then with that purpose. It is not unusual, and I mentioned the example earlier, for an organization to indicate that they are customer centered and yet to manage, in particular, to manage the individuals who are customer facing using metrics that are not customer centered, where they're not looking at things like first contact resolution. They're not looking at friction that they're creating in the customer experience and that type of thing. So that's C. R is results, and it's measuring the right results, but also driving continuous improvement. A is customer awareness, And so the awareness agility is really leveraging the data that we have to better understand who our customers are and how to serve them, and adjusting the journeys that we create, or micro journeys, those experiences that we create for the customer to drive continuous improvement. F is for fitment. And fitment, that word, it actually comes from shipping. So on a ship, the fitments are those things that attach to the ship, things like rails and other fittings that are made for that ship, that have to be maintained for that ship in order for it to do its purpose, to fulfill its purpose. And in the same way, with our employees, we need to be aligned in purpose. So the individual that we hire has to have a purpose that is in alignment, that is not out of alignment, moving in a different direction with the organization. Uh, the the exception to that might be a very low level role that you expect to turn over, but by and large, that truly is an exception. We want to hire people that are aligned with the organization, not simply those that have the right skill or the right education. And then finally, T is for tact. And this has to do with more emotional agility, which is a term that Susan David coined about 9 or 10 years ago from Harvard. And that has to do certainly with emotional intelligence, but it's also an understanding of oneself and adjusting, being agile in the moment as you engage with the customer. Whether they're being difficult, maybe that customer is having a bad day or had a bad experience, but it's meeting them where they are. It
Mhm.
is empathizing with that customer and then resolving that challenge. And this is one of those areas where AI can be an assist. If the agent needs help, or if the customer representative needs help getting to the right solution and solving the problem, then the
Mhm.
AI can augment that agent's experience. But that, kind of in a nutshell, is craft. It's culture. It is results awareness and agility. It is the customer awareness. It is fitment of our people, and tact finally.
Hmm. What strikes to me here is this is beyond the usual KPIs, the numbers, the
Mm.
metrics that mm, teams are constantly judged upon and measured upon, and it really enters the realms of culture and, as you mentioned, about emotional agility. I guess I have never seen this particular term, emotional agility, used in boardrooms that often, but it should be used. So, thank you for creating this, Bryant, and sharing this with us.
My pleasure. It's interesting, as you mentioned, the emotional agility piece, or what I call the tact agility, because oftentimes we believe that those are talents that someone is either gifted with or they're not. But the reality is that these are skills, and they're hard skills that we can train and we can develop in people. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things where, again, coming back to fitment, we want to make sure that the people we bring into the organization have the capacity to exercise those muscles, if you will, but they are very trainable.
And you have worked with Fortune 1000 brands, I mean, global giants, and in fact, family run businesses as well. So, in terms of observation, what patterns do you see, Bryant, across the board when it comes to missed opportunities or missteps in customer experience?
That's really an excellent question.
Mhm.
We see a number of things. Coming back to the agilities, one of the most common that we see is in the results agility area, where organizations often are measuring activities instead of outcomes. So they might measure the number of calls that they took or the number of customers that they served in a day, as opposed to measuring actual outcomes. Was the customer satisfied? Did they leave better off than when they came into the store or when they called in to get service? So that's probably one of the most common areas. But each of these requires having a framework to ensure that you have ongoing alignment with each of the five agilities, and it's establishing frameworks that are delivered consistently. The other common issue then is uh, ensuring that the organization is actually adhering to those frameworks outside of those customer-facing functional areas.
Hmm. And sometimes, it's too big to notice the blind spots because, especially, and this happens with context, or let's say in the scenario of startups or early stage startups, where um, small teams, they just don't know where to begin, or maybe they are too afraid to pass on feedbacks or escalations to the leadership because sometimes as a founder, and this is from my personal experience, Bryant, as a founder we can be too much obsessed with what we are creating, and we are not receptive to feedbacks, probably negative feedbacks as well. So what's your opinion on that?
Wow, that is a common observation, and certainly in the entrepreneurial space, we tend to have a vision of what we think the organization should be like, what products or services should look like, and how the customer should experience them. And that's great. We tend to, and I'll include myself in that, we tend to be a little type A to an extent and want to pursue things our way. But the reality is that if we don't incorporate customer feedback, and that's that awareness agility, and I don't mean surveying our customers to death because we do see that with a lot of, especially large organizations, but a lot of smaller and mid-sized organizations use surveys to excess.
Mhm.
We have to stop and be willing to actually listen to, and that could be focus groups, it could be individual customer interviews. We have to listen to feedback from our customers to see what's landing and what's not landing. And if we're not willing to do that, well, we're really positioning ourselves ultimately to fail.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And also, this is a very, very important factor, trust internally and externally. According to you, Bryant, what's one overlooked trust killer in businesses today, and how can leaders fix it?
Wow. Gosh, limiting myself to one, I think I'm going to go with two specific areas that I see being challenges frequently. One is I see an eagerness to satisfy the customer and deliver a promise that is very difficult to actually deliver in practice. And so it's uh, not over or under promising, over delivering, it's over promising and under delivering, or OPUD, I frequently call it. And really, when we do that, we're setting ourselves up for failure. Uh, I know that it can be a strong desire, particularly if an individual is a customer-facing representative of the business. It can be
Mhm.
easy to want to promise a high level of service that simply isn't practical. And the reality is that once you've done that just one time, you've got a dramatic impact to customer retention. And what we're trying to drive here is customer retention. So the whole point of creating customer experiences that matter is that they attract customers, new customers, and they retain existing customers. And according to Bain& and Company research, just a 5% reduction in churn rates can as much as double profitability of the organization, depending on the industry vertical. So being able to deliver consistently good experiences is huge. And then when you do make a mistake, because that will happen from time to time, right? We're all human. But when that mistake is made, owning it, demonstrating empathy, agreement with the customer that that situation, that circumstance never should have happened, and then let me fix that for you. So that can be a great way to actually develop greater trust is in how we respond when a mistake is made in service. The other thing I would say is this: oftentimes we miss opportunities to develop trust
Mhm.
simply by not telling the customer what we were going to do in the first place. So if a matter of practice is that, uh, let's say, we can all relate to going to the doctor. Certainly in the U.S., I remember going to the doctor as a child, and they always had candy afterward, right? That was part of the experience as a child going to a pediatric physician. And it was a delight, but it made it something that you looked forward to, right?
Yes.
And what they often did was they set the expectation that if it was a good experience, you were going to get a lollipop, let's say. When we miss the opportunity, when as a matter of experience, we offer something, even if it's something extra that isn't expected, which can delight the customer. But let's say as a matter of follow-up, I'm going to send you an email that summarizes everything we talked about in the meeting and, uh, deliver to you, say, an additional white paper in my space. I might deliver a white paper to that customer that's relevant to what we've talked about. If I simply do those things, if I simply send them the follow-up notes, I send them that white paper, that can be terrific. That could be a great value add, but I've missed the opportunity to grow trust if I haven't told them what I'm going to do beforehand. So it's the act of telling them what you're going to do and then following up and doing that. And of course, I always like to UPOD, that is under promise and over deliver. But you still have to make the promise.
Hmm. Hmm. Makes sense. Makes sense. And I've seen that, and especially in remote teams, misaligned communication, it can, silently, like, erode trust faster than we think. So how exactly your framework addresses that, Bryant?
That's a terrific question.
Mhm.
With remote teams, communication is simply vital, but making the communication count is really vital. One of the things that we advocate with remote teams is really there are a couple of things to ensure that trust develops and is maintained. Very often, remote teams are hired remotely, and so these individuals may never have an opportunity to meet in person. They may be, as you and I are today, sitting in opposite ends of the world and never have that opportunity to meet in person. And so, one of the things that we do in practice is that we ensure that there is some time for people to socialize, uh, even in a meeting experience remotely so that
Mhm.
they can get to know each other and experience each other as humans, and not simply be focused on the business at hand for a given meeting.
Great, great plan. So before we wrap up this informative conversation, if our listeners would like to get in touch with you and explore more about the Craft Agilities Framework, what's the best way to do that?
Sana, the best way to do that today is to navigate to thenextcxeconomy.com. The Next CX Economy is the name of my book, which is forthcoming. It's due out in September of this year. And it is where I really explain the framework, the Craft Agilities Framework in great detail. And what folks can do right now is they can navigate to the nextcxeconomy.com, provide their name and an email, and we will keep them posted on progress with the book and provide them with some other updates. And they'll have an opportunity to pre-order. And if they do, there are some special bonus opportunities for them as well.
Great. I'll have all the links mentioned in the show notes for our listeners. And Bryant, thank you. Thank you so, so much for this grounding and enlightening conversation. And thank you for showing us that great customer experience. It is not a tactic, it is a culture. So thank you once again for this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a delight to speak with you and to share this information with your audience.
Absolutely. And to all of our listeners, if you are reimagining how your team delivers value, builds trust, and connects with your customers, Brian's Craft Agilities Framework might just be the North Star you didn't know you needed. So make sure to check out the show notes to connect with Brian and also to follow us for more conversations at the edge of strategy, soul, and scale. Until next time, stay bold, stay human.